If your husband whispers another woman's name on the phone while your children are upstairs sleeping, what would you do? Cry? Scream? Beg? I did none of those things. I smiled, opened his laptop, and found proof that my husband had been using our money to fund his affair with his coworker, while our sons believed he was working late. He thought I'd be the quiet wife, the forgiving wife, the woman too scared to fight back. He was wrong. Very, very wrong. Because if my husband wanted to destroy our family for his mistress, I was going to make sure it cost him everything. And this is how I ended my husband's perfect little fantasy. Hearing your husband flirt with another woman on the phone is heartbreaking. But finding proof that he's been keeping a mistress using your time, your trust, and your money while your children sleep under the same roof? That kind of betrayal doesn't just break your heart. It rewrites your entire life. My name is Madison Harrison, and a few months ago, I thought I had everything figured out. I believed my marriage was solid, 15 years of history, 2 beautiful sons, and a comfortable life in central New York. I thought I knew my husband. I thought love, loyalty, and commitment still meant something. Turns out, I was living inside a fantasy while reality was happening right behind my back. I'm 37 years old, a senior financial analyst at one of the biggest banks in the region. Numbers make sense to me. They follow patterns. They tell the truth. People lie. Especially the ones you trust most. My husband, Brandon, and I met in college. We were one of those couples people assumed would last forever. We got married young, struggled through our 20s together, and slowly built what I thought was a real partnership. Then came our boys. Matthew, now 15, smart, sharp, and way too observant for his own good. He notices everything, even when he pretends not to. And Luke, 11, soft-hearted, kind, and still innocent enough to believe people are mostly good. For years, life felt stable. Not exciting or perfect, but stable. Brandon worked in human resources at Harrington Global Group. I handled financial risk assessments at the bank. We paid the mortgage, attended soccer games, argued about laundry, hosted Thanksgiving, and did all the ordinary things married people do. We weren't some glamorous romance movie couple. We were steady. At least, that's what I believed. The first crack appeared on a rainy Tuesday evening in October. I was in my home office, buried under quarterly reports that refused to balance, when I heard Brandon laughing in the kitchen. Not his polite work laugh, not the tired chuckle he gave after a long day. This laugh was different. Lighter, warmer, intimate, the kind of laugh that used to belong to me. I stood up quietly and walked toward the kitchen, stopping just before the doorway. Brandon was leaning against the counter, phone pressed to his ear, one hand running through his brown hair, the nervous habit he had whenever he was excited. He was wearing the cashmere sweater I bought him for his birthday, the one he claimed was too nice for everyday wear. I stood there, frozen. "Stop it," he whispered, smiling. "You're terrible." A pause. Then he laughed again. "What if Madison hears you?" My entire body went cold. The way he said my name, not like I was his wife. Not like I was the mother of his children, like I was an inconvenience, an obstacle, something standing between him and what he actually wanted. I backed away before he could see me. Quietly. Carefully. Like if I moved too fast, the whole illusion would shatter right there in the kitchen. I sat back down in my office and stared at my computer screen for nearly 20 minutes without reading a single word. Who was he talking to? How long had this been happening? How had I missed it? Or worse, had I been choosing not to see it? That night, Brandon left for his usual investment group meeting. Every Tuesday, every Thursday. For months, I had never questioned it. Why would I? I trusted him. God, what a fool I was. The moment his car pulled out of the driveway, I did something I never thought I'd do. I went through my husband's private things. His laptop sat in his office like it had every other night. Password protected. But Brandon had never exactly been a genius with passwords. I typed in our anniversary date. It opened immediately. Of course it did. Same password for years. Same man, different lies. Within 10 minutes, I was sitting in the dark, scrolling through emails that made my hands shake. Her name was Brittany Morrison. Brittany worked in Brandon's HR department. At first, the messages looked harmless. Meeting schedules, policy reviews, lunch coordination, normal office communication. But as I kept scrolling, the tone changed. Fast. "Thanks for lunch today. I haven't laughed that hard in months." Another one. "Madison's working late again. Sometimes I wonder if she even notices I exist." Then this. "You make me feel alive again, like I matter. like I'm more than just a paycheck and a taxi service. I felt physically sick, and then I found the one that destroyed whatever denial I had left, from Brandon. I can't stop thinking about yesterday. When can we meet again? I need to see you. Her reply came less than 10 minutes later. Tomorrow, same place, I'll wear that dress you like. I just sat there, silent, still, like if I didn't move, maybe none of it would be real. 15 years, 2 sons, a mortgage, family vacations, Christmas mornings, inside jokes, hospital visits, late-night talks, every brick of the life we built together. And he was willing to burn it all down for a woman named Brittany. The truth is, deep down, I think I'd known something was wrong for a long time. I just never let myself believe it would be this. Brandon had been distant for months. Critical, cold, always finding fault. The way I loaded the dishwasher. The shows I watched. The fact that I drank coffee instead of tea, tiny cuts, every day. So small you almost ignore them. Until one day you realize you've been bleeding for months. I started wondering if maybe I really was the problem. Maybe I had changed. Maybe I wasn't enough anymore. But sitting there, staring at those emails, I finally understood. It wasn't that I was disappointing. It was that I was in the way. I should have confronted him. I should have screamed. Thrown the laptop. Burned his precious cashmere sweater. But when you have children, you think differently. You don't want to destroy their world, even when yours is already in pieces. So instead I got smart. I printed every email, every lie, every receipt of betrayal. I locked them inside my office safe. Then I deleted the browser history, shut the laptop, and went back to pretending. When Brandon came home around 11, he smelled like expensive perfume and someone else's deodorant. He kissed my cheek absently, not like a husband, more like someone patting the family dog. Then he went upstairs without saying another word. I lay awake until dawn, staring at the ceiling. Not crying, not breaking, planning. Because if Brandon thought I was just going to quietly disappear while he played house with his mistress, he had badly underestimated the woman he married. The next morning, Brandon was his usual self. Polite, efficient, emotionally absent. He made coffee for himself, but not for me. Packed lunches for Matthew and Luke. Checked his phone every 30 seconds while pretending to read the morning news. Like nothing had changed. Like he hadn't spent the previous evening whispering sweet lies to another woman while I sat 10 feet away. Working late again tonight? I asked, buttering my toast. Probably, he said without looking up. Big project coming up. You know how it is. Oh, I knew exactly how it was. His big project was about 5'9", stylishly dressed, and apparently had no moral compass whatsoever. Matthew looked up from his cereal, eyes shifting between us with that sharp awareness teenagers develop when they realize their parents' marriage is cracking. Mom, can you drive me to Jake's after school? Dad said he'd be too busy. Of course, sweetheart. I reached over and ruffled his dark hair so much like mine, Luke barely looked up from his pancakes. He just shook his head when I asked if he needed anything. He'd been quieter lately. Still, watching. Children always know. Even when you say nothing, they feel it in the walls. After the boys left, Brandon gathered his things. He was wearing a jacket I didn't recognize. His hair was styled more carefully than usual, dressing up for Brittany, no doubt. Have a good day, I said, watching him closely. He paused at the front door, hand on the handle. For one ridiculous second, I thought maybe he'd turn around. Maybe he'd confess. Maybe 15 years would matter enough for honesty. Instead, he gave me a polite nod and walked out. I waited until his car disappeared around the corner. Then I called in sick. I had work to do. Real work. Finding information on Brittany Morrison turned out to be embarrassingly easy. The woman had apparently never heard of privacy. Her social media accounts were wide open: Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, an entire digital scrapbook of someone deeply committed to looking expensive. There were selfies in rooftop bars, photos of overpriced cocktails, designer handbags carefully angled into every frame, dinner dates at restaurants Brandon had definitely never taken me to. She was divorced. No kids. No visible responsibilities beyond looking flawless and collecting validation. And yes, I had to admit it. She was exactly Brandon's type. Slim, stylish, confident, the kind of woman who walked into a room expecting attention. Everything I had spent months convincing myself I wasn't. Or maybe everything I had simply forgot I used to be. But here's the thing about women like Brittany Morrison: they usually aren't nearly as clever as they think they are. and they almost never expect the wife to fight back, especially not the boring wife. That day I planned, I screenshotted everything. Emails, photos, tagged locations, comments, patterns, I copied receipts, printed statements, saved backups in 3 separate places. Then I opened a private bank account Brandon didn't know existed. I transferred money, not enough to trigger suspicion. Just enough to make sure I wouldn't drown if he decided to sink the ship. Then I made the most important call of the day. Carol Steele. We'd survived college together, bad boyfriends, worse professors, and one unforgettable spring break in Miami. Now she was one of the best divorce attorneys in the state, and Brandon was about to become her favorite kind of client. A guilty one. "Maddie," she said after I explained everything, "I'm so sorry." I stared out the kitchen window. "I feel stupid." "No," Carol said immediately. "You feel betrayed, there's a difference." That hit harder than I expected. "What do I do now?" "Don't confront him yet," she said. "Document everything, every text, every charge, every lie. Give me proof and I'll give you leverage." "How long?" "A week, maybe 2. The more evidence we have, the stronger your case." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Okay. And Maddie?" "Yeah, stop protecting him more than you protect yourself." I sat there for a long moment after we hung up, because she was right. I had been protecting him for years, protecting his image, his comfort. His lies, not anymore. That evening, Brandon came home 2 hours late. His shirt was slightly wrinkled, his cologne had faded, and there was lipstick on the collar, faint, but there. He claimed he'd grabbed dinner with colleagues. He couldn't even look me in the eye when he said it. "How was your day?" he asked, pouring himself a glass of wine. "Quiet," I said. I sat calmly on the couch, flipping through a folder. "I spent some time organizing files. You'd be amazed what you can find when you really dig through old documents." He froze, just for a second, but I saw it. "What kind of documents?" I kept my voice casual. "Financial records, email backups, household paperwork." I looked up. I found some interesting patterns in our credit card statements. His hand tightened around the wine glass. "Charges I didn't recognize, restaurants I've never been to. Hotel bookings on nights you told me you were working late." The color drained from his face. He set the glass down too carefully, like if he moved too fast, the whole house would collapse. "Madison," he said quietly, "I can explain." "Can you?" I stood up. Slowly. "I would love to hear how you explain a romantic dinner for 2 charged to our joint account while I was home helping Luke with science homework and wondering why my husband was missing family dinner again." He opened his mouth, closed it. For the first time in months, Brandon had nothing to say. "Good. Here's what's going to happen," I said. My voice was calm. That scared him more than yelling would have. "You are going to tell me everything." I stepped closer. "Who she is, how long this has been going on, and exactly what you thought the end game was here." He looked like a man standing on railroad tracks, hearing the train too late. Then the tears started. Not remorse, panic. "It's not what you think," he whispered. I almost laughed. "Really?" I folded my arms. "Because what I think is that my husband has been sleeping with a coworker named Brittany Morrison for at least 3 months, using our money to fund their little romance while lying to me and our children every single day." His face turned white. He hadn't expected me to know her name. "How did you? Does it matter?" I stared at him. Cold, steady. "No, Brandon. What matters is what happens next." I leaned in slightly. "And trust me, you are not going to like what happens next." Then I walked away, left him sitting there on the couch, crying into his own guilt. As I climbed the stairs to check on the boys, I heard him frantically dialing his phone. His voice was low, panicked. "Brittany, we have a problem." I smiled for the first time in weeks. "She knows." Good, phase 1 was complete. Now the real work could begin. The next morning, Brandon tried to pretend none of it had happened.